Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we will be talking about the quarterbacks in the division this year. Of course, everyone wants to talk about the different quarterbacks that are out there. Of course, you got the Trevor Lawrences, you've got the Anthony Richardsons, you've got the Will Levises, and you have CJ Stroud. We're going to get into that more as we go over this episode. But of course, first thing we're going to do on this episode is do the Get It Off Your Chest segment. And on this episode, we're going to mention a recent signing in the AFC South. That signing would be Jamal Adams. Now, plenty have talked about how, or use this as, oh, this is not a great signing. Oh, this is that. Oh, this is this. Well, let's take it for what it is. It's a 1-year deal. It isn't like they just signed him to a deal that's going to make going to put them in salary cap hell or anything like that. It's a 1-year deal. So who knows? Maybe it doesn't work out during training camp and he's gone. Maybe it does work out and it's a great deal. Who knows? But, I know there are those that are killing this deal and saying, oh, it's a horrible deal. Why would they do this? Why would they bring him in because he's limited or this and that and the other? I'm like, look, okay, I get what you're saying. However, it's just a 1-year deal. It is just a 1-year deal. And, hey, it is what it is. We'll see what happens with that deal. Hey, he could definitely help this team. He's going to play for a defensive coordinator that was his his defensive back coach when he was in New York playing for the Jets when he was at his height, essentially. So we'll see what happens. But, I find it quite interesting that so many are automatically just killing the deal. And some of you even using this to go at Rand Carthen. I've seen some of that. And some of the people that are doing so are Titans fans, actually. So it's quite interesting just to see this commentary, and it does make me shake my head. I'm like, hey, can we bring a little bit of perspective into it instead of using it for your agenda? Can we? Really? All right, that's the Get Off Your Chest segment for this episode. And of course, this episode, like I mentioned, we're going to be ranking the quarterbacks in this division. But, I can't just rank the quarterbacks in this division. No, I got to at least give you some information on them, of course. And we're going to start with the quarterback that many are probably talking about going into this season. That would be Mr. CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans. Of course, he completed almost 64% of his passes, 4,108 yards through the air, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So I had a very stellar year. At one point, he only had one, maybe 2 interceptions through a majority of the season, which was huge for him. And no doubt he's a talented quarterback, can understand and read defenses very, very well. Is a leader. You can tell he's a leader of that team, and he is a leader of men with how he commands the huddle, commands the team, get along with his team, understands his teammates. You can definitely see that. A few things that I would say that, that to watch this year. There's some pluses, of course, with him, obviously, because, he had a great year last year, and no one expected him to have that great year off top. But a couple of things that are going to be to watch this year. How, teams adjust to him in terms of they making the, in terms of the film they've watched and seeing, the different things that they see from him. It's going to be interesting to see how teams adjust. Also, what's going to be interesting is to see how he adjusts to the adjustments. Because, of course, there are going to be teams that are going to make those adjustments, like I mentioned. He's going to have to adjust to them, figure out how they are, taking away some of the things that he likes to do. And if he's able to, overcome those, then, hey, that's why I like to say with quarterbacks, or just any player in general, you really know a player is a star player when a league makes adjustments to that player, and that player makes those adjustments and still is successful. So that's the next step for CJ Stroud, in my opinion. Also, another step is, you notice last year he had a few near interceptions, which, no one really talks about that. A couple that, bounced off guys' hands, things like that, could flip this year, and he could potentially, those could potentially be interceptions this year as opposed to being just basically a miss down for them to attack. Now, he does have more weapons this year. That is going to be insane to watch. He added Stephon Diggs. He's got Joe Mixon in the backfield. That's an upgrade at both of those positions, adding more weapons. I mean, that Texans offense could be very, very explosive this year. And then also, of course, they added more to the offensive line, which brings me to my next point. Definitely a thing to do for him is to keep him upright, keep him, being able to scan in the pocket, because if he has to bring his eyes down and take off and run or move around, things like that, it does make it quarterback. It makes CJ Stroud less effective. Now, I will say, not saying that just CJ Stroud, but any quarterback, or majority of quarterbacks, I would say, that are having to move around and keep their eyes up down the field, not quite as effective just for the majority of quarterbacks. There are some that are better on the run, but just for the majority, no. So, adding more to their offensive line, adding more pieces there definitely helps, definitely gives them, a way to keep CJ Stroud upright and, of course, making those decisions. And hopefully for Texans fans and for the Houston Texans in general, it will allow them to explore the field and be able to make those explosive plays that they are used to seeing. Well, they came used to seeing last season. Definitely, it's going to be something to watch when it comes to CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. Very interested to see just, how they deal with the expectations this year. I mean, last year, of course, there wasn't as many expectations for them. This year, expectations are sky high. I mean, you have some saying that they are a Super Bowl contender. Not to say they aren't, but just to say, wow, definitely a lot of, basically a jump from no one thinking, or not a lot thinking they would make the playoffs last year, or let alone win the division and win a playoff game. Yeah. So definitely the expectations have been risen for that team. Okay, we're going to get into the three other quarterbacks in the division. That would be Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and Trevor Lawrence. We're going to kind of go into, their, pluses and minuses and things to look for going into this season for them. But first, we're going to take a quick commercial break on touring the AFC South.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off of these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
Alrighty, thank you again to EBO Beard Butter for being a sponsor of touring the AFC South. Gotta kind of scroll that across the bottom of the screen if you're watching. Yes. Definitely check out EBO Beard Butter and my other sponsor, Garrett Logistics. Now, getting back to the show, I want to talk about the next quarterback in the division. Of course, I'm going to talk about all the quarterbacks, of course, obviously. But the next quarterback in the division I want to talk about is Mr. Will Levis. Now, plenty talked about him coming into the season, more about probably the mayonnaise and coffee than his actual quarterbacking skills to start with. Of course, before he got drafted. Of course, that was quite interesting. Seeing someone put mayonnaise in their coffee. Ugh, ugh. But anyway, um, going into the season, it wasn't expected that he was going to play. However, he did play this year. This past year, 58.4% completion percentage, 1,808 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He started off hot. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions against the Atlanta Falcons in a win at home in Nissan Stadium. However, he finished the season with just 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Didn't necessarily keep that momentum going throughout the entire time. Now, I will say that he did start halfway through the season. So, of course, didn't necessarily get the majority of the season to work through the kinks on being a rookie quarterback in the NFL. However, he did have some things that were going against him, like a bad offensive line. Probably one of the worst in the NFL last year. So, that's something that definitely didn't bode well for him. However, I will say that, for him in general, some decisions definitely, of course, you look at, and, that definitely weren't great decisions. Like, he kind of, forced a few things or, waited too long to make some passes that were basically could have, you fit in a particular area if he'd hit them on time. It just, that's part of being, a rookie. Sometimes rookies come in and they do great, like CJ Stroud. Sometimes it takes time for rookies, and it's going to probably take a little time for Will Levis. Now, I will say he definitely exudes leadership. Definitely, you can tell he cares about the game and he puts in the work. Of course, with all the different things that he does for after practice. Also, in the film watching, things like that. He definitely is a student of the game, a guy that definitely tries to put his best all into it. Another thing I would say about him is you gotta get down. Let me break that down. I'm saying that because he took some hits last year running the football. You just can't take as a starting quarterback. You cannot take those type of hits over and over and over again. Slide. Give yourself up. You've got the yardage you're going to get. Slide. It isn't necessary to take some of those hits. So that's be another thing I'm looking at. I'm like, hey, we got to get down. If you're, the franchise quarterback, you can't take hits like that. Now, he does have a strong arm, and, that was exhibited when he rolled out to his right versus the Falcons, threw it all the way across the field to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine for a touchdown, and that was like, 50 yards down the field. I mean, definitely has a strong arm. It's just going to be interesting to see with a pass-first offense how he's able to do, what they're able to do for him, and how he's able to potentially succeed. Essentially, this season is going to be a showcase in terms, not a showcase, but actually a time to watch to see if he is the guy for the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they went out and added Lloyd Cushenberry, starting center. They brought him in. He was very highly rated coming from Denver. They brought in J.C. Latham, the first-round pick out of Alabama. They had Peter Skronsky that was there last year. They brought in Sadiq Charles. Nicholas Petit-Frere starts the season instead of, being on suspension for gambling. So, that all those things are different. Plus, you have Bill Callahan, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL, coming in to coach your offensive line. So those things have kind of changed up and I guess upgraded the offensive line. So should be better protection this year. Last year you had DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver. And then after that, you had some guys that were a little inconsistent or hurt. You had your Treylon Burks, you had your Kyle Phillips, you had your Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, you had Chris Moore. Chris Moore, when he got opportunities, made great plays, and then so did Nick Westbrook-Ikhine when he had the opportunities as well. But you never had that defined guy beside DeAndre Hopkins. And this year, of course, they brought in Calvin Ridley, and they also brought in Tyler Boyd as well. So a little bit more weapons. Of course, Derrick Henry's not the running back anymore, but however, they do have two running backs in terms of Pollard, and then also they have Tajay Spears as well. Now, I'm not saying they're the power running backs that Derrick Henry was. However, they will be running backs that can consistently, do multiple things. They can run the football as well, between the tackles. Not necessarily probably as tough as Derrick Henry. However, they can solidly run the football between the tackles. Yeah. Don't let their size fool you. But it's going to be interesting because all these pieces, I went through mentioning them just to say that you're going to find out this year if Will Levis is the guy moving forward for the Tennessee Titans. All the pieces are set, so that'll be something to watch this season. Another guy that is going to be to watch this season is Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson. Now, coming into the NFL draft, he was an athletic marvel. I mean, a guy that big, that fast, with a rocket of an arm is a can't miss prospect. Now, I know he didn't do great things at Florida while he was there. Not to say all of it was on him. No, he did have some receivers drop passes that hit them in their hands. However, he wasn't necessarily the most consistent quarterback there. But he did have all the tools, and he had Shane Steichen as his new head coach. So, people were looking like, okay, maybe we got something here. However, we only saw 4 games of it. Of course, his completion percentage, 59.5%, 577 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Of course, like I mentioned, he showed he had that rocket arm. Definitely, a few throws he put out there definitely showed he had a rocket arm. However, I will say that, of course, like I mentioned, he only played 4 games. So we never really got to see him grow or see all of the different tools he had because he was injured a lot. And then he had a shoulder injury, I believe, versus I can't remember if it was against, but he had a shoulder injury that put him out for the entire year. He had to have shoulder surgery, and they shut him down. That has got to be a concern that early that you have not seen him, play. Not to say that Will Levis didn't. I know he only played 9 games, but it wasn't because he was injured. One of those games, of course, because he was injured in the last game, but of the season last year. But as far as for all intents and purposes, he was on the field. As far as Anthony Richardson, he wasn't on the field because of injuries. Now that's a thing to watch for. Now, like Levis, he's got to know when to get down, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, like the Gambler says. Kenny Rogers, for those that don't know who the Gambler is, but he's got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away. But what I mean by that is he's got to know when to get down when contact is coming. Slide or give yourself up. You've got the yardage you needed to get. Get down. Or better yet, study Lamar Jackson film. Lamar Jackson, for all the running that he does not take solid shots when he gets hit. That's one thing that you notice about him. So either he needs to study the tape of Lamar Jackson, or he needs to give himself up when he can. Get the yardage, get down. Pretty simple. Of course, he does have Jonathan Taylor all season this year, so hopefully, he's handing the ball off a little bit more, so that way that'll kind of, limit the damage or those different things that potentially can happen. And then he also has another weapon in A.D. Mitchell, another guy that can take the top off of defense. Now, we know Alec Pierce was supposed to be that guy, but I think A.D. Mitchell is going to be that guy. So that'll be interesting to watch that chemistry develop and just to see how that weapon helps in the development of Anthony Richardson. Now, that's going to be the biggest thing to watch this year for me for Anthony Richardson is, can he stay healthy? That's a big thing because he can't stay healthy. Then it means you got Joe Flacco coming in as the backup this year, not Gardner Minshew. Now, I'm not to say that either one has won a Super Bowl. I will say that, but he is a little long in the tooth, and he will give you opportunities to get interceptions as well. So, do you really want Joe Flacco to come in, or do you want Anthony Richardson to be your starter for the entire season? Yes, wishing him health this season. Hopefully, he definitely stays healthy so we can see if he's going to be the guy there, or what else needs to happen for him to actually grow and continue to develop as an NFL quarterback. Well, we got a quick commercial break coming up, and after that, we're going to talk about the senior quarterback of this division, Trevor Lawrence. We're going to get into kind of what's in store for him this year and what's happened in his career in Jacksonville after this commercial break on Touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before in the commercial break, we will be talking now about the senior quarterback in the division. That would be Trevor Lawrence. Funny that I mentioned the senior quarterback, and he's going into his fourth year in the NFL. But in his third year, of course, he had 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Of course, wasn't necessarily the season they were expecting after, the previous season, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And in that previous season, he had one of his good moments. They were, they were floundering bad against the Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert in the wild card game. And then the second half, Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars stormed back and won the game. Now, it started before the half with that first touchdown to kind of get them on the board, and then the momentum carried the second half, and then the Chargers were the Chargers. But, that ended up happening, and, that was a bright spot for him. But, much like majority of his career has been, it has been an up and down process. Of course, beginning of that season before they kind of got rolling in the 2022 season, he wasn't playing quite as well. In the second half of that season, he caught fire and the team caught fire, and they raced back and won the division. Now, I know the Tennessee Titans didn't finish well, but you got to give props where props is due to the Jaguars for putting the heat on them and then catching them as well. So, definitely got to give them props for how well they played. But the crazy part is going to the 2023 season, he starts well, and then all of a sudden they hit a cliff. And I know injuries, losing Christian Kirk isn't there. I know those things are there. But, you also have to remember there are other teams in the NFL that are injured too. And, they find ways to still win and make it happen as well. But that's one thing with Trevor, especially with this new contract. They're going to expect him to be better. Being consistent is something that he has to do. He has not done it throughout his career, be consistent. Now, I scratched the first year because, that was dealing with a particular gentleman that used to commandeer the Florida Gators. But we're not going to mention that man's name because I'm pretty sure Jaguars fans don't want to mention that man's name either. But as far as I say the first couple years of his career hasn't been any consistency there at all. So that's a huge thing. See if he can actually be consistent this year. That's going to be big to watch, especially with the new contract. He's going to have to be better. Now, I hear some fans talking about the drop passes and things like that. While I understand that, it's not all on the wide receivers. Some of that's on Trevor Lawrence too. Trevor Lawrence has to be better as well. So, for them to take that step forward and, potentially win this division this year, like some think that they could have the potential to do, he's got to be on top of his game. He's got to be consistent throughout the season, not, the peaks and valleys. The peaks and valleys is what's going to get them back to where they were this past year and not where they want to go this year. Of course, the O-line, hopefully for them, is going to be better. Now, I talked about the Titans' offensive line and, how they were bad. Jaguars' offensive line was bad, too, and they got their quarterback injured. Now, I know he was dealing with a few things, and, it's not to make excuses for the play, but it's still up and down. But he has to have better, consistent line play for him to be better. And now they added Mitch Morse, the center from Buffalo, came down. Amazing. Two of their big free agent acquisitions were from Buffalo. Gabe Davis and Mitch Morse, veteran center. With him stepping in at center and Luke Fortner being the backup now, it's going to be interesting just to see how he commandeers this offensive line, how he commands everybody, puts everybody in the positions. Hopefully for Trevor Lawrence, he puts them in the best positions to succeed, and they are able to protect him and allow him to scan the field and be the quarterback that people thought he would be when he came into the NFL. He definitely has the arm. He definitely has the ability. He definitely can run, which that's an underrated ability that no one really talks about him. He can actually run the football too. But it'd just be interesting to see, the word consistency just rings in my head when it comes to Trevor Lawrence and if he's able to be consistent going into this season. That's a huge part of what hinges on this offense being successful in Jacksonville. Now, when I started the show, I told you I was going to rank the quarterbacks, and I'm going to give you my rankings, not what rankings are out there or anything like that. I rank on what I see and what I think. So ride with me for a minute. The top quarterback in the division. Now, you really didn't think I was going to put anybody but C.J. Stroud, did you? But yeah, C.J. Stroud, I've got him ranked as the top quarterback in the division. I mean, I know it's only been 1 year, but I'm going year to year. I'm not going over bodies of work in terms of careers. No. If that was the case, then, you have a case for Trevor Lawrence putting him at the top of the list, despite the inconsistencies. But C.J. Stroud definitely is the top quarterback in the division, in my opinion. He definitely has shown the most of his 1 year, in terms of, like I said, going year to year. So I'll give C.J. Stroud the top quarterback in the division. He's number one for me. Number two, I'm going to put Trevor Lawrence. Now, I know I've talked about the inconsistencies, but he still had 21 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. Now, I know that's not stellar numbers for a quarterback that was, talked about being generational and things like that. However, he did play up and down, but, the numbers are the numbers. Of course, he can be better. But I think this is more of where I have him right now. I've got to rank the quarterbacks just based on what they have done so far in their careers. And the other two guys were only rookies last year as well, but didn't quite have the same success as C.J. Stroud. Which brings me to my third ranked guy. That'd be Mr. Will Levis. Will Levis, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Key stat here, 9 games played. Okay? He only played 9 games, didn't play a full season. Definitely got a lot of room to grow and get better. And my fourth ranked quarterback in this division, Anthony Richardson. Now, I know some will be like, wow, you really put him at fourth. Here's my reason why. Now, I love the ability and just the endless potential there with Anthony Richardson. However, he's got to be on the field. He has got to be on the field. He played 4 games, and technically, he didn't play 4 full complete games. So, right now my grade for him is an incomplete just because I don't know what all I'm going to get out of him because I've only seen him 4 games. Now, Will Levis, to be honest, you don't know all of what you're going to get out of him either. But I did see more of that potential out of him than I did see in terms of Anthony Richardson because we only saw him for 4 games or parts of 4 games, not a full 4 games. So, for before Colts fans, get mad and like, why are you ranking him lower than Will Levis? That is my reasoning why. Okay. All right. So that's the show for today. Ranking the quarterbacks in the division. Again, I ranked them CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. Take a listen back if you didn't catch all the episode. Of course, you can go over all those different things and, of course, scrutinize what I have to say. It's fine with me. It's all subjective. It isn't like these are set in stone. So, of course, I'm going to be ranking other positions, running backs. Let's see, we're going to rank D-line, linebackers, of course, secondaries for both teams as well, which got to have some fun there. Yeah, so, if you want to keep up with me, of course, Touring the AFC South is on all listening platforms. You can go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And also, Touring the AFC South is on the Mike Patton Network on YouTube as well. You can go there and actually watch the show. Yeah, you can see my mug on the screen and sometimes maybe some guests. Of course, you can follow me on the artist formerly known as Twitter, Word to Print, at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general _ MP. I want to thank you all for tuning into this episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. We're out. Peace.